Happy New Year!
Hello, Happy New Year!
Hello, welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Grab a seat and relax. I have missed all of you so much. I've missed Carola, even though we just spoke a few weeks ago. We had a meeting.
Yes,
We had a meeting.
A meeting, which I then proceeded to immediately forget. No, I didn't forget.
You didn't forget. You got busy.
I got busy. I was making that video, and then that kind of took all my.
Yeah, Carola made like genuinely the most fantastic best of 22 video, best of 2022 for us. Love it, fantastic. Couldn't have done it better. So greatly appreciated.
I was laughing so much, honestly. I was just like,
but we're back. Welcome to season 4.
Wow,
I can't believe it's season 4.
Me neither, but I mean, I wasn't counting, so.
Has been meticulously counting since the show started.
Yes.
I wanted to start off this video with a little bit of a haul since Christmas passed, and there was a couple of things that I got that have been pertinent to the show.
Yes.
So my friend got me a Seto Kaiba for my Christmas.
Watch out, or he'll finger gun you to death.
He will, but look at this perfect grumpy little bitch.
Oh, he looks so grumpy. Look at his eyes. He's so done with everything.
So angry.
Oh,
I love him so much. Fun fact: this is the same best friend so we go exchange Christmas presents at this dim sum restaurant back home. And we've been doing this for like 5 years. Like, they know us by now. It's like, oh, it's them back on their bullshit. One year, he got me a rowlette that I screamed so loud about that people thought he proposed to me.
Did you get a free dessert?
No. Because they figured out it was just a fucking owl.
No!
They were like, oh my god, did he propose? And it's like, better! And I'm holding this round owl. I also, when I was at Daiso, I got too far. I got a lemon gym bag.
Yes.
I got a lemon gym bag.
Was that Daiso in the US or Daiso?
It was Daiso in the US.
Okay.
And I got a Kaiba Corp R&D department mug.
Yes.
My friend knows me very, very well. So I wanted to do that little haul because these are things that we've talked about on the show, and I felt like it was important. Didn't get a lot of BL stuff over the holidays. Usually, like, my aunts at least like pretend to try, and they're like, "Is this gay?" And it's like, no, no, it's not.
I also didn't get. I think the only person who got me books this year was my sister, and none of them. I mean, one of them I guess is gay, but it's like a regular graphic novel. It's Swedish. And I'm like, no one got me anything gay. I'm confused. But I got a lot of wool. So, like, people are trying to save my life. I appreciate it greatly.
But we're so glad to be back. And in the spirit of being back and being old, we're going to talk about some vintage BL titles that are still worth reading.
Yes.
In the spirit of being old.
We're not that old.
We're
okay.
really not.
Said the person who literally woke up 20 minutes ago from a nap.
Yeah, from
an afternoon nap.
Had to take a little nap.
Oh my god, I'm so old.
This is the part of the show where we say we have a Patreon. We actually gained a new patron recently. Thank you so much for joining.
Welcome to the madness.
Hey.
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 I didn't even mean that. It just kind of.
Yes, you did. I think every time it happens, you mean it.
What?
Like it, you mean it. You mean it.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
But we'll have a Patreon episode next week. Thank you to all of our patrons that make this possible. We will continue to shout you out. Oh,
it's gonna be a fun one. I say that. It's not gonna be funny. I take it back. It's going to be absolutely. I'm gonna suffer so much. It's gonna be horrible.
You are, and I have been sharpening my pickaxe, waiting for this moment for literally months.
Oh god, yeah, you're
Since
the one.
We said it.
You're the one who thought up the name for this episode.
I am. I'm brilliant. So we're going to talk about some vintage titles because we are old that are still worth reading. And no, we will not just talk about Gravitation for an hour and a half.
We've already done that. You can find that episode.
We've done that multiple times.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
We're also going to talk about Gravitation for an hour and a half.
I mean, let's just get it out of the way. Read Gravitation. Like, honestly, it's worth reading. It's amazing.
I say watch Gravitation because then you get the music, which is the point of the thing.
Yes, but also read it because I love the series. I love the series, but I love the manga, and so many people haven't read it, and I will die on this hill.
I think you're wrong.
No, I think I'm not. I think
okay. Sound off in the comments
anyway.
If was wrong or not. I say watch the anime and then read the doujins and just be a little bit confused.
But read the manga.
Okay, fine. You're not going to be any less confused if you read the manga. The doujins are out of pocket.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. You're going to be confused either way because, you know. I mean,
okay, we said we're not going to talk about Gravitation.
Okay, we're not going to talk about Gravitation. Okay, go on. What's the next? What does the outline say? After we're not going to talk about Gravitation.
Okay, so I want to discuss why reading vintage BL is hard. And I have to discuss the fact that vintage now means something between 20 and 30 years old, while retro means anything over like 20, 30 years old.
I'm bringing the retro today, okay? Like, a lot of mine are old.
We're doing a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So vintage at this point does mean the 1990s, which
Jesus, no,
kills me. It means the 90s and the 2000s, which kill me. Oh,
I hate it here.
So really, this is a sound off of like the manga that made us. If you listen to our episode with BL Garden DFW, you might hear some overlapping titles as well because we talked about a lot of that over there. Great episode. We need to have them on our show.
Yes.
If you're listening, you need to come on our show now.
Did you see them over the holidays?
I did not. I got so busy, and then Southwest fucked up everything, and I was stuck for an additional like 2 days, and I got nothing done. I'm so mad, but I will be back home probably for Easter. I will make time. I will solidly make time. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that make reading vintage BL hard, and the first thing is accessibility. One thing about older Fujin is that we tend to keep things. There's not always a lot of resale of this stuff, and we talked about that a little bit in the Fujin gift guide last month's episode, where we tend to hoard. Some of us have manga that we've kept since we were teenagers.
I'm just, quietly contemplating the fact that when I die, I mean, I've told my friends this for years, build me a pyramid and bury me with all of my things because I am not letting go. You're not going to pry this manga from my cold, dead hands, okay? I'm taking it with me.
Yeah, same. Like, I always said that my co-host gets my Yaoi Shelf. So I'd be you, Carola.
But it's going to be so much overlap.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you not have 15 copies of Twittering Birds Never Fly in varying languages?
I don't understand what you're talking about. It's fine because we could always just as if I'm going to help. My friends can always build the pyramid out of BL. I can be. It's fine. We'll find a solution. And the only reason I'm saying pyramid instead of the whole Viking burial thing is that they burned the Vikings.
Yeah, I don't want my books to be burned.
No, that's not happening. That is not happening.
I would love for it to be like a sponsored thing because I'm a narcissist. I'd love for it to be like, the Amanda Memorial, like Yaoi Shelf.
Yeah, I know, right?
Some local anime club or something. I'd love that. Like it's just like a shelf full of like manga and anime.
Yeah.
And it's like the Amanda Memorial weeb shit.
I love that. If I don't get to take it with me, I guess someone will just have to open like a manga museum in my name or something.
I just realized that the lemon bag has words and it says, I cannot contain myself.
Oh, wow.
For joy. I cannot contain myself for joy. I love Daiso, and it's ever so slightly off English phrases.
I love it. I miss Daiso.
There are so many in Texas.
I'm so surprised.
There's so many in Texas.
Why?
We have a large Asian population.
Mm.
But so accessibility. This stuff is not always easy to find. Now,
Nope.
I was going to say Netflix, not Netflix. eBay.
Yes, Netflix.
Netflix, notorious for canceling shit after one season. eBay, thrift books, even sometimes Amazon and other, again, Mercari, the secondhand market. Sometimes you will be surprised at what people are willing to sell.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned for those of us who have a Half Price Books is amazing for that shit. Because sometimes you do get like the weeb liquidation where someone clearly sold like their entire collection.
I will never understand those people.
So I actually am not a person that has an entirely original collection because I was that person. I graduated from high school and, my aunt was convinced that this was all satanic pornography. So she didn't like me having it anyways. And she had kind of like gaslit me into thinking that I'd grow out of it. Like this would be a phase that I stopped liking, like being bisexual. It's a phase that I'll grow out of.
Yeah.
So I sold and got rid of a lot of my manga when I was younger because I was just convinced that like I'd go to college and I'd become an adult and adults don't like kid stuff. And then I went to college and learned that not only are there people that still like this shit, I then became anime club president. Because turns out when you like something, you like something.
Yep. That's how that works.
I was that person that got rid of a lot of my collection. Like to this day, am bitter about it, but I got rid of all my stuff. And my adult years have really been like buying back the things that I love. It started really with Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like it continued with manga, where it's like if I'm at Half Price and it's like, oh, here's a couple volumes of Only the Ring Finger Knows. Am I ever gonna read this again? No. But does this make me happy because I read this shit when I was a dumb high schooler? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So accessibility is huge, and I don't ever want to downplay how difficult it is. You've probably heard Carola, lamenting over here because Americans have all these options that just aren't available.
It's the forever suffering of being an international fan of anything. It was just like when this whole community got started, like I want to say 15, 20 years ago, and even, even 10 years ago. Obviously, we have a bigger community now. Everything is much more international and accessible, but just things like, like cosplay. We would go on websites and it would be like tutorials and then they would all say the same thing. They would all say, oh, this is super easy. You need these things and you can get them at Walmart. And we're over here like,
what's the Walmart?
The fuck? And and that's all because everything was so US centric and we don't have any of these things. I mean, it's gotten a lot better, but just hearing you talk about all these physical places that you can go to that are like available and that do a lot of thrifting, like we don't have that.
Yeah, it's really crazy because like as much as we may complain about like access issues here, Americans are very, very privileged in that we have, and then also again, like we have that cultural, sort of thing of like sometimes we do just get rid of it. And again, like I regret getting rid of my collection. I regret letting my aunt gaslight me into thinking that I'd grow out of this just like bisexuality. I love that like those are the things I was supposed to grow out of were bisexuality and manga. The hallmarks of becoming an adult is growing out of your bisexuality and your love of anime. We actually talked about that not too long ago.
yeah, we did.
Well, no, actually, me and my aunt talked about it.
Oh,
and it was really, really funny because we were talking about like how she tried to support everything else that I did, which is true. If I wanted to do quiz league, she supported me. If I wanted to do Latin, she supported me. If I wanted to do debate, she supported me. And she's like, and she flat out said, she's like, the only thing I didn't support was that anime stuff.
And that was what stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? In all honesty, like I disagree with how you went about it, but I get why if this is something completely foreign to me, I would also think this is nothing but satanic pornography.
I mean, at least it's pornography.
Yeah, at very least, it's pornography.
It may not be satanic always, but
well, I was watching like Full Metal Alchemist and Death Note and shit, so like,
yeah, I can see that.
So, which we're not going to talk about that Death Note character pool.
I am freaking livid. We had a moment, didn't we? We had
a moment.
We had a moment in our private chat where we were
we did. So accessibility is a huge one. Carola, do you want to talk about publishing houses that just don't exist anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's there are so many.
A lot have fallen.
I mean, it's funny because it's like, on one hand, you know, because we talked about this previously, before Christmas, we talked about how, you know, there was nothing, like nothing was available. We didn't have anything. You would have to, you know, but when you think about it, there actually were so many publishing houses that just vanished almost before you had an inkling that they existed, because I think it's not until now that I've started thrifting a lot of like old stuff that I never found here, that I've seen a lot of brands that I didn't know existed back then. So it's like, I always think about, you know, because it was Tokyo Pop, which was, you know, the giant, and then they went under for a while. And then they came back. Yeah. But when they came back, I will forever be salty, because before they went under, they launched Blue, right? Their BL imprint. And then they went under and they never resurrected Blue. And when are they gonna finish the series that were left hanging? I'm just asking. I have a lot of questions.
There's so much DramaCon that I can't read now.
Yeah. Like, I was left hanging. I've been waiting
myself so much with that reference. I feel like I've turned to dust.
It's okay. I mean, it doesn't.
That's reference.
I mean, based on this episode and a few of my recommendations, I'm free, and I'm a very well preserved 60-year-old. Okay, so
not false.
Not false. I am mentally 90 years old, but yeah, so many have fallen. And
absolutely.
I feel like I don't even know most of these. Like, we talk about like Yaoi Cat and what was that? I can't even remember.
There's so many now. There's a Great the Take video about like deleting media, because we've had a lot of that with like animated shows. Like, they'll just get deleted. It's like, this doesn't exist anymore. And how some of the response to that has been piracy, which, me as a reformed pirate, yes.
Yeah, but you know, I've said this before. I don't advocate piracy, and in this day and age, you don't need it, right? Because most things are readily available. Most things you can get somehow, you know.
Yeah, I'm referencing the stuff that like we're never getting.
Yeah.
Like, for me, there's a few manga that I fell off with that I would love to pick back up, but I know those are not available in the US, and they never will be available in the US. Ever. Yeah. No, there is no market for this except for me. So, no, like, I don't advocate piracy. Like, don't pirate My Hero Academia. You don't need to. It's everywhere. No. You could go outside and find it. Like, it's everywhere.
Yes, there's like sitting on the ground. Someone
it's outside.
It's raining. Volumes of Hero Academia.
So, like, no, don't, if you're pirating any of like the big 3 or the big 5, you're just a dick.
Like, we're talking about obscure niche BL that you know that no one knew
3 people have read.
Yeah. I have one on my list for later, which is like, I haven't read it in actual years, and this thing will never. I found it on LiveJournal. This thing will never
see the light of day.
Yeah, it was. I don't even know. Like, I was able to find it on Mandarake, so I'm gonna buy the original copy just because I wanna own it. But you know, in Japanese. But it's like this thing. These aren't like, and a lot of it isn't even. It's like, it's not like it's quality stuff either. But we didn't have anything else. Like, you know,
right.
It was just, we found it. We scavenged like little, you know, rats or vultures. And,
literally us.
Literally us. Just grabbed onto anything even remotely gay that we could
Also,
find.
can I just say I love the inverse of like my BL shopping now than what it used to, which is just grab shit that looked gay. Like I would just try anything, and like even if I didn't like it, like I wouldn't get rid of it. Like I mentioned only the ring finger nose because I read that I was like, I fucking hate this. Like this is stupid. Why am I reading this?
But I still do this.
Yeah,
And this is why I complain so much, you know, because I used to be complaining that there wasn't enough BL and that you just because you had to scavenge. Like, you know,
you had to.
I would go to Outland and I would go to their little BL section and I would
Yeah,
grab whatever they had that was new that I hadn't read. But now I just can't shake it. I'm in this survival mode where I'm like, I'm literally picking up every single new BL that comes out. And the only way that I'm sort of surviving is like, because I've chosen to stay away from a Megaverse. We've talked about this because I don't think it's for me. And I also haven't dipped my toes into Danmei purposely because listen, I am buying everything. I can't keep up with this series.
I guess my acceptance of a Megaverse has been what's kept me from like live action BL. Is that it's like I don't have time for all of this.
Exactly, which is like I know I keep telling you, oh my god, come watch Kin Porsche with me, but also don't get into it because you like in this moment, even as we are recording this episode, the back of my mind is screaming that right now the new episode of Between Us has just finished airing and I can't wait to see it.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry I'm keeping you.
No, it's fine.
But there's a lot of publishing houses that just don't exist anymore. And that means it's hard to get a hold of this stuff. I mean, again, the US is privileged in that we do have a lot more secondhand market. But if that publishing house goes under, or like, I mean, we rail against Tokyo Pop a little bit. It's because we love them. It's because we were hurt and abandoned and we're glad that they're back. But like, there's Tokyo Pop and Blue series, and it's like, this is never coming back.
I am so upset.
Yeah, and that's upsetting, and that's hard.
And it's like, okay, I don't even like Junjo Romantica, okay? But I would like to complete my collection. I have spent so much money on that series. Can you just friggin' finish it? I just want the complete series. But yeah, and you know, things were so volatile because people, I feel like publishing houses, we talked about this before, especially what happened here was that publishing houses jumped on the manga trend, but they didn't understand it. They aren't manga publishers. And they were just like, oh, this is taking off. We should get on it. And then they started jumping on it and they were just like picking up series at random. Turns out it's not profitable for them. And then they go bankrupt. And we were just abandoned. And that, I think that happened a lot in the early 2000s. Both,
it happened so often.
Internationally as well.
Or my favorite was just dropping a title.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you've released 3 out of 4.
That is the worst.
That's happened to me a bunch of times.
I love when that happens. Like I literally, and sometimes it doesn't make any sense either because sometimes this happens. Sometimes this happens even now. Like last year, I was finally able to get my hands on, I think it was Ninth Life Love. And I'd been like scavenging for this title for so long because it was out of print. And this is a June title. Yeah. So it's not like, you know, they're still in business.
I don't know what it is about those 4th volumes. It's those 4 of 4, those 4th volumes.
Yeah, we talked about this with BL Garden.
Who the fuck sold 1 through 3 and is like, nah, I'm keeping this last one?
It's so weird. It's like, at the very least, could you just surely.
If you're gonna sell the collection, sell the collection. If you're gonna keep the collection, keep the collection. I'm also okay with that. I don't know why you sold all of Antique Bakery. But don't sell 1, 2, and 3 or 2 and 3 and then leave 1, 4.
It's so weird.
Like that's mean. That's mean to me.
That is a personal, like that's a personal vendetta. That is like they went, we're gonna get these weebs and their gay shit. We're just gonna release 3 out of 4, and then they'll be in eternal pain. They planned it all.
Literally. Oh my god.
Conspiracy.
It is. I have that with Ludwig II, where they never released the second volume in English, and it's like God.
And sometimes you're just like you don't even know. You know that there's supposed to be another volume. You just like kind of, I think you.
I had that with Maiden Rose forever, where it's like, okay, volumes 1 and 2 came out in the US. Oh, there's 2 more
Yeah.
that end the story greatly. What? We're ranting and we're old. Anyways,
But that's what this episode is about.
we're ranting and we're old. Okay, let's talk about something that is going to get a little bit personal. Let's talk about the cringe.
I am beyond cringe. It's fine.
I'm not.
There's
there is a bit of a cringe sometimes where, especially like younger fans have this with older titles, because it's that issue of when you've watched nothing but modern series, it's hard to go back. But at the same time, if you came up in the golden age, kind of like we did, it's kind of hard to go forward sometimes. Because I saw where the foundation of the bullshit started. Like, I watched Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. I watched Naruto. I watched Inuyasha. So when I see other manga and anime that are retreading a lot of those issues, where you have like the power imbalances of Dragon Ball in Bleach, when you have some of the nonsense of this series goes on forever, like One Piece, I saw the foundation of that. I don't have any desire to see a reskinned version of that.
Yeah.
I don't. And in the same way, a lot of people who were like, oh, well, like my big 3 were like Demon Slayer, My Hero, and I don't know what the other kids are watching. Then they go back and it's like, what the fuck is Naruto?
Listen, sit your ass down, children. I will.
Right. Well, and there's so much in me that gets it, because like if I had only grown up with modern stuff, because we have to remember this was our modern back 20, 30 years ago. This was our modern.
Yeah, like I remember. Oh my god. I mean, we were lagging a little bit behind up here in the north, a little bit. But I remember the day a friend introduced me to Naruto. Like the series, the anime had progressed until the Chunin exam. And the last episode that had aired was Naruto fighting Kiba. And he was like, you guys have to watch this. It's so good. It's better than Dragon Ball. Like, because Dragon Ball was the only thing they'd see. Like, we didn't have anything, And I say that with all the love I have for Naruto. I still think it is the absolute, I don't think anyone doubts me. I'm just putting it out there. I love it.
No one has ever doubted you. But it's so weird thinking about, like if someone has read nothing but like, oh my god, what are modern Heartstopper?
That's not a BL.
It's a male loving men.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
If they've only read like super, super modern stuff, I can't imagine going back and reading something as like physically awkward as some of the stuff that we grew up with.
Yeah, and there are so many factors to that, like, but I think on one hand, you have how now the conversation is so, and oh my god, I don't even want to go there, so oversaturated with the whole, it has to be good representation, and it has to be this, and it has to be pure. And there was a lot of problematic TM stuff, but also the art. Like, if you are used to
if you're used to hands fitting in the same frame, if you're used to feet that actually make sense, if you're used to beds that actually fit in a room,
you're in for a shock.
If you're used to backgrounds, just backgrounds.
What backgrounds?
No one had backgrounds.
When we grew up, we were so poor, we didn't have backgrounds, okay?
We didn't have backgrounds. None of the rooms had backgrounds. It was just, everything was a window.
I mean, I know we said that we weren't going to talk about Gravitation, but seriously, Yuki 80's living room is so funny to me, because it's that couch, and then there's just like this huge ass space with one step and the TV.
Concerned. That man is mentally ill. He is so understimulated.
Yes.
There is nothing in his home. Bless him.
Get him like a hamster wheel or something. Maybe that would be healthy. I think he's not.
He's a giant wheel. He needs one of those poppets. He needs like a stimming toy.
Maybe he would stop smoking so much if he had one of those.
We're not going to talk about Gravitation for an hour and a half.
No, but just a little bit in between the lines.
But the cringe, and that's the art, that's the dialogue, that's everything. Like there's just a lot of cringe. If I had to go back and read my old fan fiction, I would throw myself into traffic.
Yeah.
I just yeet. Because it's bad. Like some of it's just bad, and like that's a weird come to Jesus when you read older titles. Is like you compare it and it's like this is just not good.
No, but do you ever try to like excuse it? Like, do you try?
Constantly.
Because
Constantly.
I'll be like revisiting things, and it's like I love this for a reason. I know,
And like you doubt yourself because it's like, well, or you do what I do, which is like I was stupid. You just
no, I'm too proud. I'll be like,
I'm not.
No, I'm not stupid. The world.
It is not.
The world.
It is not I that is wrong. It's the children that are wrong.
Yes, I am perfectly. But yeah, but you're right. And I mean, and I've said this before. I can't remember which episode it was. We were talking about some older series. I was talking about Prince Charming.
Yeah.
Which is one of these. I don't know. Like it is an early to mid 2000s series. It's published by Juna. Back when Juna had, the bigger volumes, like, like Jazz.
I remember the thick ass Juna volumes.
Yeah, like they were so weirdly high, like they were so tall. And it isn't like a lot of the series that I have from that era, they aren't like the art isn't great, but a lot of them I remember liking the stories. But you're absolutely right. I find myself like afraid to go back to them now because I don't want to be faced with them not being
Sansa. Why?
Sansa is here.
But no, like I mean, I've been very vocal about that, not just with BL, but like Inuyasha is the series that made me a fangirl. If I try to go back and watch it now, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is bad. Like, this is not good. Like, and I can't recommend it to other people, even though it's like, I need you to understand why I was so passionate about this. And then it's like, yeah, this is dumb. This is also dumb and bad.
But people need to understand, and I cannot stress this enough, which is why I've said it in so many episodes, that this was all so new to us, not just BL, but the whole Japanimation idea. Remember that term, Japanimation? That was a thing.
You know what? It was in my senior research project because I did my senior research project in college about anime as cross-cultural communication. Because of course I did.
Of course you did. That is very cool.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. But yeah, and we, we didn't have anything like it. It was so new to us. And so we were so easily fascinated. And unlike kids today, and I've said this before, you have your Crunchyroll and Netflix and your simulcasts, and you have so many options. But we had those 2 or 3 series that we either scavenged from the depths of the dial-up internet or that aired on TV, like in really like weird time slots. Like again, I grew up watching anime in Swedish because we didn't have it dubbed in Norwegian.
So here's what I would have to do is we had a DVR.
Oh yeah.
And I would have to record episodes of Naruto because it was always on like when I was at school or something. And I'd watch it in the morning while I was getting ready. That and Trigun. So I'm like, the volume's on like 3 with subtitles because I can't listen to it. And I'm just sitting there eating my cereal in the middle of the morning while my aunt is still asleep and everything like that before I go to school. I've said this a million times. There was no such thing as being a casual fan back in the day. There was like, I'm just going to dip in and out of this series. It was, this is my life. I will dedicate my everything to finding content of this.
I have almost every single episode of Pokemon from the first episode to like I want to say to the Johto League, but Norway did this weird thing where they ditched half of the Orange League and then never bought it and then just started on Johto. It was very confusing.
Norway does not care about the Orange Islands.
No. And I was like, it was very confusing because, characters left and then there were new characters. And I was like, what is happening? But yeah, I got up in the morning on weekends, every single weekend for literal years and taped every single episode of Pokemon. there's no casual fan in
There was
that.
no casual fan
And then
experience.
I would switch channels to the Swedish channel and watch the Swedish episode, which was always like a few weeks ahead. So I'd be like watching them simultaneously in two languages. And then of course Sweden also had Sailor Moon. So I would watch Sailor Moon.
Of course
in
Sweden had
Swedish.
Sailor Moon.
Yeah, we never had that.
Let's talk about the thing that I know is going to be the most painful for us, which is oh boy, there sure is some problematic content in the titles that we loved when we were younger.
What?
And like, I'll say this, genuinely, when people say problematic content, like I agree. Like there's a lot of problematic content in older titles. There is a lot of just rape, just very, very casual rape. There is a lot of gaslighting and psychological abuse. There's a lot of physical abuse. There's more like physical abuse than I remember. It's like, stop hitting people. Just
I think this is such a weird thing that, you know, one thing is like the occasional slap, you know, because you find that in heteromances too, you know, like it gets heated and then one partner slaps the other.
Right.
But a lot of like older BL, and I don't know if this is because, you know, they're supposed to be like, because, you know, they're still supposed to be masculine men, but they get into physical fights with their boyfriends. I'm like,
what is going on here? It's just insane. Like they're hurting each other. Like, this isn't okay. It always.
And also, why did everyone have a gun? There are so many guns.
There's so much, and like the threat of gun violence. Like, I don't know if this is like Japanese mangaka venting like valid concerns about domestic abuse in their homes, because we do know a lot of BL at that time was concerns about domestic abuse from women. I don't know what that is, because it is, I guarantee you, different case by case. I know with Maki Murakami, she just wanted there to be guns.
Yes, but that's Maki Murakami, and she's on a different planet.
Yeah, she's like, she's that meme of like, what do you have? A knife? No! Like, that's her.
I love her so much. Why is she?
We're not talking about her for an hour and a half. But there's so much just like violence against partners. There's so much of just like casual abuse. The one thing that I think is the worst, and this is what I've had the hardest time stomaching, is one, the rape is romance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's a ton of that. And then two, the I'm not gay except but for you.
Yeah.
Or the gay man trying to quote unquote turn the straight man through dicking down.
Yeah. And the incessant, I'm not gay. You're a man. I had a moment in my life. I went through a whole phase a couple of years ago where I feared that I was done with BL because I was so fucking tired of the phrase, but you're a man. I'm like, listen, that's the point. You're a man. He's a man. That's why I'm here.
And we talked about this during our second episode together, where we talk about psychological abuse. Well, we also talked about the Sime Uke episode as well, where like you'll get these ukes who've just like are grown-ass men who've never ejaculated, apparently.
I know, right?
And like, I get that there's like different experiences for everyone. I'm not here to belittle that. But like, it was just so pervasive. And like, there's genuinely problematic stuff. Now, what we're not here to do is to take that, wave it as a wand over everything, and say, we can't read anything from 1990 something to 2010. That's not what we're going to do. Will I say that this is the most empathetic I am to people saying, oh, this is problematic? Yes. Yes. And especially the way that we talked about it, because we didn't have the same language for, you know, this stuff, because it was gay. We took it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we had nothing
There was
And
nothing.
we got so good, at least I got so good at looking between my fingers at things. Just like I would just nitpick. I would pick the
Mm-hmm.
bits I liked and then just pretend like the rest didn't exist because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if I want to read the gay, just gonna have to stomach it, you know?
Right. Or you just honestly, we didn't have, so when I said we didn't have a language for it, like we didn't, there was no, we've talked about this. I couldn't like go to Borders and be like, hey, like I don't like that every sexual encounter in this book is rape. There was no one that was going to listen to me.
No.
There was no one that could be like, oh, I'm sorry that that's not what you like.
But like, can you even imagine doing that back then? Like
No!
going no, you just took it and
I couldn't imagine like holding up, and we'll talk about this title in a minute. I couldn't imagine like taking like Jazz and being like, hey, so every time these guys fuck, it's non-consensual. And I don't like it. Like I'm 16 years old and I don't like that. There was no one who listened to me.
no?
There was nowhere I could go to. I couldn't go online and be like, less rape, please.
No, there was no online. You could you could oh my god.
I couldn't go anywhere.
No.
And your friends were usually reading harder stuff than that. So there's like, what are you doing, you pansy ass? You can't handle a little bit of rape? And it's like, I shouldn't have to endure it.
But I also, you know, it makes me wonder so much because I do know, like, obviously, as a hobby scholar, I know that there were so much of, you know, so much of the BL back then was like either criticized for being idealized or, you know, it had a lot of non-con. But what I'm really wondering is because the world felt so conservative even back then, I think it's very strange that all the titles we got that were imported, that were localized, that they actually went through with it, considering how problematic a lot of them were.
Right. Like that's what,
because we're talking about the age, right, where the US licensed Naruto and then censored the blood. And I was like, it's a ninja show. What do you expect?
Like, we should have a whole episode on censorship.
Yeah.
We should get
someone on here who's like
we need to get someone on here to talk about censorship. Yeah. That was one of the things about censorship that always drove me crazy. Is it like you can erase the dick, but like the main character is still saying, I'm gonna rape you. Like he said that. Like that's a speech bubble in this printed book.
Yeah. And that was like, sometimes it didn't even mean the actual act of sexual assault. It was just how they talked about sex.
Literally.
Like, it was literally like, I'm going home to have sex with my boyfriend, but you couldn't say that. You said, I'm gonna
non-con the hell out of my boyfriend.
Sir?
Right. Like, no, it's not okay. So I'm usually someone that scoffs and be like, oh, this is problematic. If you're looking at anything from like 2015 on, no. I'm sorry. Like it's not the same. If you're gonna say like, oh well, Hitori Jimmy My Hero is problematic because of the age gap, I'm just gonna stare at you blankly.
I have 3 words for you. Okame ga nai. That's all I'm gonna say.
Bunny drop.
Speaking of yaoi anatomy, that dude's hand is bigger than Ayasa's whole fucking head and torso. The trauma.
The hands were so big. And like terrifying.
How did it get to this? Because, you know, as we will get into when we get into our titles,
yes,
I've been reading a lot of like vintage, like classic, like old. And like back in the day, it was all, you know, it's all like super fluffy sugar plum fairy boys. And I'm just thinking, how did these ethereal creatures develop into that? What happened?
Who knows? So that's the most I'll probably entertain problematic content because, yeah, looking back at it, we both had to do some rereading in prep of this episode, can confirm a lot of it is very problematic. Can confirm. Yeah, a lot of it's hella problematic. And if that squicks you out, I'm not here to tell you no. I will say a lot of the problematic stuff is just by framing, which is something that I'll talk about every episode. Is that like the next scene just rolls on like nothing bad happened. I think that's usually the biggest issue with the problematic content is that it's framed as like romantic or fine. I remember a lot of older titles being like, oh, well, it's okay that he hit me. I know he loves me. And it's like, no, that's a crime. You don't threaten your boyfriend. Like, that's okay. Like, that's not okay. Like, that's just not all right. So, after this long dirge of why older BL can be difficult, why is it still really important to go back and study the old ways?
I mean, why isn't it?
I
mean, yeah, I love that first note that you have there.
It's the backbone of the genre.
Yeah, it's literally the backbone.
It is the foundation on which everything else is built. I think, again, that's one of the reasons why like a lot of modern BL is so difficult for older BL fans, is that it just feels like retreads. Because it's like it's all the same foundations, just reskinned with prettier graphics and less complicated characters. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like every generation should have their, this and or that. But like that's honestly what's made modern BL such a struggle for me, is that it's just like it's what's made modern anime hard for me. And like keep in mind, the anime and BL that has captured me over the last few years have been like really, really out there. Because it's stuff that's doing something different or has shocked me so much that I can't even focus on how trite it is. Like Devilman Crybaby. I'm so scarred that I can't think about how trite it is.
I think, I'm much more like, I eat everything essentially. I do. And for the most part, I like everything. But I think that it's so important to, I'm not saying, there's nothing wrong with preferring the old stuff or preferring the new stuff. No. But it's like, I think it's always like worthwhile to go back and look at especially a lot of these key titles, because they help form the genre, they help form and inspire the series that are coming out now. And I like a lot of modern stuff. And again, like one of the reasons why I got back into, again, I'm in live action hell now, because all I do is watch these Thai BL series. But I gave up on live action for so long, because for the longest time it was literally it was love triangles in which one person was a female, what am I, an incel? Like a female character who she didn't even have an agency. She was just there and then somehow ruined the whole thing. But like, and at the end, one of two things would happen. Either they would kiss, like their lips would barely touch, or they would die. And I was like, I'm so tired of this. And then now we're getting all of these series where they are having like complex problems. And sometimes they're not even that complex, but it's just that there are storylines. And they have actual conversations, and they kiss, and no one dies. And sometimes they do die, and I'm sad. But it's so different, and it rekindled my love for it. But I wouldn't be without having seen the guy walk into the ocean at the end of Boys Love. I'm fine. Boys Love the movie. Thank you for that.
But, it's true, and. I think it's important. I think it's important in anything. If you say that you like movies, there's some Criterion movies that you're going to have to watch. Does that mean that you will enjoy all of them?
No. Of course not. Have you ever met someone who's liked every single movie, or like even every single movie within a set genre? No.
Yeah. Like, the Criterion Collection exists for a reason. It's, if you want to say that you're a fan of this thing, these are the titles that are influential enough that, you know, you should at least know about them, because these are the things that other people reference. And one thing I've learned, especially being a bit of a film person, like with Criterion Collection, is how much of it you don't have to like.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to like everything on the Criterion Collection. It's not about that. It's, but now I know when someone makes a reference to a certain old movie, The Maltese Falcon or something like that, I at least know where that reference came from.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's so important to go back, you know, and there isn't an official old BL Criterion Collection. We'll work on that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we'll make that one.
Yeah, I guess we'll make that one. But, you know, I think that's what's the most important, is to be able to be is to go with an open mind and realize. And what's amazing is you start to see some of the things that influence this other stuff. One of the biggest things that I've had an issue with in modern anime and BL discourse is an inability to look back. Because I know when I sold my soul to anime, I went back. I saw Outlaw Star, I saw the Gundams, I saw Hellsing, because like those were like right before my era. And even though I can't say that I really liked any of those, like except for Hellsing maybe, but like I didn't like Outlaw Star. I didn't really care for Gundam. I knew that if I was going to sell my soul to this wasn't a monolith that just involved Lupin the Third, Trigun, Cowboy Bebop, and Naruto. Like, I knew that there was more than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that meant having to go back and be like, okay, now I get why in all of the other mech series they do this trope. It's because it started from Gundam. And that's something that I've noticed a lot in just like modern, like honestly, in modern fan culture, is not going back and then using the whole like, oh, well, it's problematic as like a banner that you can wave over the reason why you haven't gone back and read like older source material. Like you get that sometimes with comics where it's like, oh, well, you know, there's Batman's never done this. It's like, he's literally done this. He's done this so many times.
Batman's done everything because
Batman's done
for 700 years.
Yeah, Batman's 1,000 years old. He's done everything. It's like, well, I only have read like this particular guy's run of Batman. Well, of course you don't know what Batman's doing. You've read one guy's fan fiction and you've never deviated. And I think the same tends to happen in BL, where it's like, I've watched everything from 2015 on, but I've never once looked back.
No.
And then you get people like me who are the opposite, where I stopped and I had to be dragged kicking and screaming to look at something forward. There's a trend on TikTok right now where a woman was distraught realizing that pigs can't see the sky, like because of their anatomy, like they physically can't see the sky
because they can't look up.
So she like begged a bunch of people that own pigs to like lift them up so they can see the sky. And I feel like that's me with modern BL, where it's just someone's like dragging me squealing, making me look at it, like no, it's 2017. Why?
It's like, come on, Amanda, it's time to watch Given.
You can't make me go back.
I love Given though. I think it's perfectly heart-wrenching.
Sure.
The pain.
Speaking of Given, see where the trope began. Sansa slut.
Schlut.
I'm learning.
You're learning. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. You know, it's know where the tropes began. That's so much of one of the things that I think is always amazing about, like, again, anything really in fan culture, but BL specifically, is like, do you remember how we used to just perpetuate tropes and we didn't know where it started?
It was just an entity that sprung out of the ground and everyone used it.
Yeah. Like, we all wrote sex the same way for like 5 years.
Yep.
And like, it was bad. It was bad because none of us knew.
It was bad.
But like, because we were all repeating this trope that no one even knew where it came from. It just like, rose out of the earth one day,
Yeah.
and we all decided that we were going to describe penises in the same way.
Because we'd never seen one.
Yeah, we all started using throbbing member. Just we all agreed.
Yeah. Weeping cock. I still think that one is not as bad as people make it out to be. I think it's one of the better ones. I will die on that hill. I think
drooling. Drooling, I think, is less attractive.
Drooling.
I don't like either of those, honestly. What were we doing?
I mean, we didn't know.
That's the thing. We didn't know.
We were writing smut because we wanted those two characters to screw, but we didn't have. We
had no idea.
The experience. There was
we did not know what sex actually was.
No.
Oh, but it's important sometimes to see where some of these tropes began, and I think a lot of times some of these series just don't get the credit that they deserve. I think there are series that get too much credit sometimes. But I think that there's plenty of series that we've just like left to the dust and not given enough credit to. So yeah. Also, it's important to learn your history. That's a little bit of us being old, but we existed in a time where gatekeeping was a thing. And again, there was no such thing as casual fandom. So you couldn't just like, oh, I've read one thing and I'm an expert. You had to go through like Legends of the Hidden Temple and explain that you actually do like this thing a lot. And while I don't think that the reasons why gatekeeping happened were good, I kind of appreciate some of it now. Because it did create someone who is incredibly unflappable and will fight people respectfully. But it's also someone who is very, very secure in their fandom. And it's like, okay, I'm wrong. I will go back and I will study. Do you have anything you'd like to add on that segment? My brain tried to conflate section and segment and just went.
It's okay. No, I agree. I think, and I don't know, like, I think we basically covered it, but I just want to, say it again that, you're entitled to have your preference, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying these old series. And, it's like when we had Dr. Thomas on, and it's how as long as you consume ethically and you can reflect on why do you like this? Why do you not like this? And I'm going to get into this when I get into some of my titles, but you have to look at what some things are problematic, just as in they just are problematic. Like a lot of the things we just talked about, but sometimes you have to look at the context and why is it framed in this way? Why is this happening? And that goes for newer things as well. It goes for newer things and it goes for older things. And I think it's interesting. I'm going to forget this. I'm just going to throw it out there. Like when we talk about where tropes came from, like I literally just because I've been reading Heart of Tama, because I finally own it. I finally have it in my possession. I'm so fucking happy. It's been so long. And I've been reading it and it's amazing. But I literally just read this scene where this dude is passed out and the other guy, remember this series is from like 1975, so it's old. And he's like passed out and the other guy is giving him medication by putting the pill in his mouth and then slipping it. And it's like, I'm here thinking, this might be one of the first times we see this. Yeah. And this is a thing that you see so often now. And it was it's such a weird thought to look at it and know that this is such a permanent thing that happens in this genre and in a lot of series in general. This might have been one of the first times it ever happened.
Right. And sometimes, sometimes going back and knowing that history of it does take some of the bite out of, I don't want to say it takes the bite out of problematic content, but it helps understand that like this goes beyond you individually. Because I feel like sometimes with problematic content, especially with older works, as we've mentioned, we tend to internalize that. Like that's our failing. That's, how, we go through the streets now with a shame bell for ourselves. Like, how could we have ever liked this problematic content? Like, you're the only person who's ever consumed it. And
how could we sit around hoping that Somi would take Ritsuka's heirs?
Okay, I never wanted that. So
I did.
Yeah, you get the same bell on that one. I wanted him to get back with Seimei and
oh my god,
and leave them.
I'm not even ashamed. I'm just
and that's fine. That's fine.
I was conditioned. I still think it's
I guess mine was Sebastian and CL.
But I mean, you're not wrong. Also, we've talked about this. There's no reason for Sebastian to be morally sound. He's a demon.
Yeah, anyone who's like Sebastian is morally ambiguous. Sebastian has no morals. He's a demon.
If he wants to eat that child in whichever way, he's in his right to do so. Because
he is. That's the kid signed the contract. I mean, contract's a contract.
Maybe you shouldn't be signing contracts when you're like
maybe
12.
You shouldn't be signing demon contracts when you're 12.
How old is he? Is he 12 or is he even younger?
He's like 12.
Jesus Christ. What shouldn't he have like some sort of guardian who's like an attorney or something taking care of his
estate? It was Madame Red and she was bad at it.
Yeah.
Because his parents were dead.
I know his parents were dead.
It's like the first thing they say.
I mean, but that's almost like just like a given at this point, especially with a lot of BL. Like, there are no parents. No parents are dead. They're always dead.
Works perfectly fine for me. Let's go over some old titles worth reading. Do you want to run through a list all at once, or do you want to go back and forth?
Let's go back and forth.
Okay. I will kick off with a title that we talked about that Carola has behind her if you're watching the video, which is Jazz. Jazz is about a high schooler who gets to see a pediatrician because he has semi-asthma. The dramatic kind of asthma that's mostly like coughing up blood and being an asshole.
Oh.
He has semi-asthma.
There's a lot of that happening in BL.
There's so much semi-asthma where it's mostly just coughing up blood, but you're still smoking and everything. Like, you're still doing all of the bad habits.
I wonder if that should be like, because now that Omegaverse is such a big thing with, your blood type determines whatever. Yes. Like, this is how, like, if you start coughing up blood when you're like 12, it's like, I'm sorry, you're destined to be a semi.
Yeah,
like,
you're absolutely going to be.
from now on, your personality is going to get worse. And
then you could just be like a sickly uke.
Yeah, that's true.
So no, it can't be like deterministic. But like, yeah, so Naoki has semi-asthma and he has to go have that resolved by a pediatrician because he's 16 years old. There's not a single 16-year-old that is going to a pediatrician. There's just not. No. But his pediatrician happens to be a hot doctor that he wants to fuck. And he proceeds to non-con this doctor in every way that he can. And I loved it.
I'm very excited to read it now that I finally have the elusive third volume, which was the one that got away from me.
It feels like a lot of things that I'll say in this episode. I can't say if it's good or not at this stage. But it's very nostalgic. And I think, again, if you want to start seeing a lot of those tropes like in play, like the semi-asthma, there's so much semi-asthma where it's just like, I have actual asthma. None of those symptoms are the same. And also, like, they treat asthma like it's this deathly condition, and it can be, but it's so manageable if you just take your fucking medication.
But he's a semi. He's not going to take his medication.
Yeah, we know that. But he's a 16-year-old semi, so we should have parents still. He still has a mom who's just be like, take your fucking inhaler. Like my asthma was treated, when I was a kid, my asthma was treated with a pill and an inhaler. Just take your fucking medicine. You get a lot of non-con as romance. You get so much of like, you get the jealous semi over birthday presents. You get that where it's like, oh, he's shopping for someone else, and it's like, I was shopping for our anniversary. You just
Oh
have like this like
God.
bad battered uke.
Why can't they communicate?
Why can't
Again, I will die on this hill. What is it with the I, a gay man, saw my gay lover, my boyfriend, who I love, who I've been with for a long time, with a woman on the street. So he must be cheating on me. It can't be his sister, cousin, mother.
Yeah, I saw my boyfriend with one of my best friends. They must be cheating.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go do a violence against my lover. And then, you have like battered UK in the corner. It's like, I was shopping for our anniversary.
Oh my God.
And it's like, oh, I forgive you immediately. Everything's fine.
What if you just asked to begin with? But they never do. It's like, hit communication, first, ask later.
Yeah, it's do violence against your partner first, and then you realize it's all a misunderstanding, and the next scene is like you're both happy. Or like my favorite is when like the seme is now tending to his uke's wounds.
Yeah,
because you battered him.
Created that he, yeah.
So Jazz is a lot of that, but I think again, like I think it's important to know where a lot of this stuff. I can't say that it started any of this stuff, but you can see its perpetuation in Jazz. Jazz, I think, is a perfect storm of all of like the bad tropes perpetuated, and I think that's why it's kind of important to read. It's hard to get through. But my nostalgic ass still loves it.
Yeah.
Some of the art is really rough because it's old. There's so many yaoi beds and weird foot and hand things. But I still think it's important that if you want to start seeing where some of the stuff just becomes like an autopilot, like you're doing a Mad Libs of BL. I was like, oh, we have to include a non-con. We have to batter the uke. We have to have like trite misconceptions and misunderstandings that become something worse. Like we have to have all of these things. And it's just like, what the fuck? I just think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, read it when I was in high school. My aunt found it and she was like, what are you reading? And I was like, oh shit. And I did not have any way to explain away.
How yeah. No. Look at this. Look at this. Yes. He's so clingy.
He's great.
But
do you want to go next?
Okay. So I was reading, I think that was why this topic came up in the first place, because I was on a spree of reading classic BL, some of it for the first time. So a lot of my titles are actually not titles that I grew up with, but that are classics or that are old and formative for the genre. So, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of the formative titles that I read in my teens, I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they were called. I couldn't find them if I tried. Like, they just popped up from some live journal community. I've never seen them.
I feel like that's so much of BL is like,
yeah,
it just like, it kicked down the door to my house and it like manifested on my shelf.
Yeah, and you were just like, and then you read it once and you never found it again. So a lot of the series that I wish I could be talking about, I have no idea what they were called. But yeah, my first title is New York, New York.
That's a good one.
Who wrote? Yeah, Mari Moragawa. And it came out. Yeah, it came out in 1995, and it just got just as in like the last year or so, got a re-release in English. I think it's been published in English before. So, but
yeah, like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, but I never read it then. So, New York, New York is about a guy. His name is Kane, right? The main character is Kane.
I believe so.
I can't believe. Wait, I have it here. I'll just look. I feel like I should know this since I just read it, but yeah, no, his name is Kane. He's a police officer in New York, and he is he's gay, and he has a lot of issues. He has a lot of these semi issues where he's you know, he has the internalized homophobia.
Yep.
He has the arrogance, like he's kind of very full of himself. He doesn't emotionally attach himself to anyone. And you know, there's a lot of that. And when I went into this, I had seen so much criticism of this series and like how much people were finding it to be problematic and none of the characters were likable. And I absolutely disagree, because what I think is important, like on a historical basis, first of all, it came out in 95. Okay. So it's like, it's in the middle of that period of BL where they were in the phase where they were still using a Western setting to kind of tell the story. And this one doesn't have a Japanese character to connect the Japanese audience, but it has the American setting. And so, which kind of liberates it from a lot of the Japanese conventions. So it fits into that historical, not hysterical.
It's a little hysterical.
It's a little historical, but you know, it fits into that into that phase of the genre. But what is interesting is that it reflects both the context of the BL era, but also the context of the era it came out with, because it deals with, you know, a society that isn't really fully ready to deal with being gay, the internalized homophobia, and the HIV/AIDS crisis.
I was about to say,
yeah, and it's like it's there. It's a little bit in the background, but it is there, and it deals with it in a very realistic way. So Kane not wanting to be open about who he is and struggling when he finds his partner Mel, and they become a couple, and struggling to live openly as a gay man. That isn't, you know, looking at it with the eyes of today, you know, you need to understand what it was like being a gay man in America in the AIDS crisis and in Japan in the 90s. Like, so it deals with it in, I think, in a very realistic way. And I mean, it does have a lot of drama, because you mean there are weird ass jealous ex-boyfriends popping out of nowhere. There's cheating.
Out of bushes. Exes popping out of bushes.
And he literally pops out of a bush, and then he sleeps with his boyfriend's ex-boyfriend, and you know, and he finds out about, you know, because of course there's sexual assault, and
of course there is.
You know, and he uses that against his partner. And and in a lot of ways, Kane isn't a very lovable character, but both characters grow and they develop together. And I think it's interesting because it does so many things, that because it is from that kind of the period where BL is coming into itself as a genre and splitting away from shoujo, but it still has a lot of those shoujo tropes. It has a lot of the early BL tropes, and if you like, you know, stories like Fake and Banana Fish, I absolutely think that you would like New York, because yes, it's set in New York, but it has this thing where it also has like this side plot that is like a thriller crime thing.
Yes, it does.
Which is actually very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't think I would get so invested in like because a lot of the time when you have a storyline like that, it's kind of like half-assed in the background, but it's actually quite compelling. I really enjoyed it. So when I finally got to read the second volume, it absolutely sold me on this series. I think that it's such a perfect example of that kind of mid 90s, like between shonen ai and BL period, and the way that it developed, and you can draw so many strings back to it. And I really like it. I think it's worth a read, even though you may not always love the characters all the time, but I really do enjoy it. And the art is actually really good as well. There's especially one, like there's this love scene at the end of one of the volumes that is absolutely beautiful. And I really enjoy it.
It's amazing. I think it's super important to, you know, mention a lot of that historical context that we mentioned, which it feels we're talking about America in 1995 as history. That feels weird, but
yeah, well, gay history.
Yeah, but yeah, and I feel like a lot of older titles have that issue of like people aren't reading it in the context of when it was written or what it's about, and I think that can make it a little bit harder to approach, especially now as we get further and further away from this stuff. because yeah, like most, and especially like as a queer person, as a queer American, uh if you don't know that history, a lot of this stuff comes off as like really problematic or bad representation.
Mm.
um and like it's not like that's just the world that queer people existed in during that time. Like there's a lot of talk about like older trans people being like trans medicalist and true scum, and like some of them probably are, but a lot of them just don't really understand a world where you can just say you're transgender,
Mm.
because to them they existed in a construct that to be trans you had to do it medically, because
Yeah.
that's what it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like if you were going to do it you had to do it. Like they fundamentally can't wrap their heads around a world where you can just say I'm transgender and like that's writ, that's
Yeah.
canon, that's accepted. But sometimes like they'll enter like new queer spaces and they're like, oh, I can't believe that's a trans medicalist that you guys have up there. It's like, no, that's just an old man. He's just
And
an
they
old man and he doesn't
yeah,
understand.
and he was there. Like you gotta like
There.
I went to so many like things with queer elders
Mhm.
during Pride last year, and it was so fulfilling. And
Mhm.
you know, because they were there, they paved the way, and we might not. And they said that themselves, you know, that they might not always agree, they might not always understand all the things
Mhm.
that us young queer people are talking about, or you know, the the battles we're fighting. But they also, at least the ones that I talked to, were very, you know, much saying we don't necessarily understand this, but
Mhm.
we know how important it is to have these fights and to have these conversations. And you know, times change.
Yeah, they do.
And even if you know your views may seem ancient and
Mhm.
outdated, it doesn't change whatever work you did for the community and for the movement in the
Mhm.
70s and the 80s. Like we wouldn't be here without those people, okay?
We wouldn't, and I think it's important to mention that. But
Yeah.
excellent pick. This one I'm going to talk about a little bit because this may appear later in the season, but I don't think we give the school series enough credit. We're going to talk about Gaku in Heaven a little.
Oh my god. Have you actually read it?
Yes.
I've never read it. I don't even think I've seen any of the volumes.
Um, it's like Oron, but not about prostitution.
See, that was how I got into Gaku in Heaven, because I watched Oran and I wanted something similar. So I watched Gaku in Heaven.
But there's
And
no prostitution.
no. But there are some twins.
There are some twins. It's a gay school life. It is
Yeah.
the gay school life. If you've read a school life BL, you have Gaku in Heaven to thank for it. There is no more influential. This is where the foundation is set. And were there school life BL before this? Yes, of course there were. Excuse me. But this is where the foundations of every school life BL has built itself upon, from the uniform aesthetic to the tropes that the characters usually fit into to the biggest drama trying to be student body president.
All right.
The foundation is Gaku in Heaven.
But Gaku in Heaven, that's it's also a dating sim, right? There are games.
There are games. It started off mostly otome,
Yeah.
but then people just kept making it super gay.
Oh, yeah, because I remember when I watched the series,
Mm-hmm.
that I was so confused because it was my first time, I think, seeing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
an otome or like a dating game turn
Mm-hmm.
into a series, and I didn't understand the point of all these love interests, and he didn't really end up with any of them because
Mm-hmm.
now I know. Now I know
Yeah.
because they're trying to cater to everyone.
Right. And I personally am not crazy about that anymore, like harem, reverse harem,
Yeah.
because I'm old and I'm bitter and I don't like it anymore.
But
But like
yeah, I understand.
back in the day that was so important. And I think again, like can I say it's enjoyable at this stage? I don't know. It's old as shit. It's trite as shit.
I
But
would love to read it, but
just
I haven't had the guts to go back and watch it because I remember trying so hard to like it and trying to tell myself that I liked it.
It's a slog.
I hate Kazuki so much.
It's a slog, and you have an absolute nothing of a main character.
Yeah,
he's just an amalgamation of hopes and dreams. And then you have like the obvious choice. And then you have a bunch of assorted extras.
Ugh. I don't understand why the obvious choice is always the guy I hate the most. I really, really didn't like him. Like
Because they're not written to be well-rounded characters. They're meant to be like seme uke quiz, like one-word definitions of caricatures.
I remember so little from that series. Like, I remember hating Kazuki. I remember the twins and being pissed that the twins didn't get more screen time. And then I remember that guy with the glasses and like the curly hair who kept going, Boku no honey. That's all I remember. I'm gonna go. Maybe I'll rewatch it.
Carla's gonna rewatch it, and then I'm gonna get a message about her suffering later.
You want to watch it with me? We could do like a watch party.
Sure, we're gonna do a watch, or we're gonna waste our watch party on Gaku in Heaven. It's not gonna be.
I actually think Gaku in Heaven is on like Gaga or Viki or something. I think it's on one of my streaming platforms.
I'm not gonna finally tie Carola to a chair and make her watch Antique Bakery. No, it's gonna be she ties me to a chair and we watch Gaku in Heaven.
Oh my god!
It's not gonna be Kyo Katamao. It's not gonna be.
It's not gonna be Kin Porsche.
It's not gonna be Kin Porsche. It's not gonna be anything that could actually be like interesting. It's gonna be we're gonna rewatch this fossil.
That would be so much fun.
We're gonna rehydrate this fossil.
Oh my god.
Do you want to talk about your next one?
Okay, if you don't have anything else to say.
There's nothing else to say. It's the fact to me it's Criterion in the sense that like a lot of old movies are Criterion that like don't watch them anymore, but like you need to know the references.
Yeah. Dear God.
Okay.
I'm just having a, okay. My next one, we're going even further back in time. I'm gonna bring up Tomoi.
Because you hate yourself?
Yeah, I hate myself. Let's see. Okay, it's written by Makuni Akisato. And this one is from 1987. So this is even older. And again, I reread this at some point this fall because I bought the Japanese volume. And I hadn't read it in a couple of years. And I mean, this thing is bleak. It's like, and it's, again, a main character who really isn't all that likable. You know, he's narcissistic and he's egotistical and, you know, he's arrogant. There's deceit and there's death and also some possibly problematic / very insensitive descriptions of war in the Middle East. Like, I haven't read it in a while, so I can't really remember because he's a doctor. And again, it's set in New York because, you know, it's in this phase where they set a lot of the... It's always New York, isn't it?
It's always New York.
It's always New York. And it's set in, you know, he's a doctor in the U.S. And then he somehow ends up going to war at the end. I can't even remember how he gets there. But for a while, he goes back home to Japan where his family tries to pressure him into an arranged marriage because, again, he can't be openly gay. But the reason I wanted to bring this one up is because now, in extension of rereading New York, this is actually the first piece of literary fiction, like the first piece of literary fiction of any kind in Japan that dealt with AIDS. Yeah, and I think that is so interesting.
Yeah, it's groundbreaking, and
yeah,
that might be one of the reasons why it's so kind of inaccessible. Is that like that's hard?
Yeah, and it's also from an era, like if you look at it, it absolutely doesn't look at like what we associate with BL, like the style, like the style of the main character. He looks kind of like Freddie Mercury with that little mustache, you know, but just not attractive. But it's, you know, because it doesn't suit with either the idea we have of, you know, shonen or modern BL. And I think it just kind of fell between a lot of the chairs. And I don't think it's been licensed here. So I think a lot of people don't know about it. But it's like, it's such an interesting story, and it's like it's really, you know, it's doom and gloom and sadness and
Right. It's I think it's definitely important to mention like sort of what you said where it's not fodder that we're used to and it's frankly a very difficult
yeah,
subject
it's
to
really hard.
broach and it's not broached in a way that like most people are used to broaching this
Mm,
topic because there's really only a few other pieces of popular media that try to talk about it and like Rent is included in that list
yeah.
and Rent handles it like the source material handles it, La Vie Boheme, like it's tuberculosis, like it's this unfeeling, you know, specter in the night that preys upon people. And it's like, it's a little bit more complex than that.
Mm. But I also think, yeah, but I think it's so, you know, because much like, you know, like New York, I really love how this depicts the contemporary, you know, and how
Mhm,
the general, how it was being a gay man in Japan and in the US,
mhm,
or from a Japanese perspective in the US
mhm.
in in the 80s and the 90s, and then also because Japan even now isn't really good at dealing with things like AIDS, you know, and
No,
HIV. And so
no.
the general awareness at the time, and I think it's such an important historic testament. So even if
Mhm,
like the the BL aspect of it, you know, the characters aren't necessarily lovable, the relationship, you know, and it's not like it isn't what we're used to with, you know, the
mhm.
whether it's the fluff or the smut or anything, it's nothing like that. It's just a very, it's very different, and I
It
think
is.
it's so important to actually talk about it because I don't know, I like it, but it's a
Mhm.
hard read. It
It's
definitely is a hard
a
read.
hard read, but yeah, like, I think again, it's Criterion Collection that I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important for people to read it because I think of its difficulty.
Yeah.
Um, all right. I'm gonna go ahead and pimp a mangaka rather than a specific title, which is anything by Natsume Ono, also known as
Oh.
Basso. So Basso is their name for boys love comics specifically, and Natsume Ono is the mangaka. You probably saw their work with Aka 13, which was fantastic, but they've been doing stuff forever. What got me into them was House of Five Leaves, which, while technically isn't a BL, is very, very gay. But Natsume Ono just
Valid.
but just they have such a unique art style. And like I mentioned, the world that revolves around Alan Neri, like that entire series was so formative to me. And it's interesting because a lot of the boys' love is actually in Italy, like it's set in Italy,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's very, very influenced by very Western ideas of what homosexuality are. Characters are often a bit more promiscuous and open about talking about sex because they don't have the same social dampers on them that mean that homosexuality is so taboo. So there's something that's almost liberating about like just having like a bunch of like gossipy gays at brunch
Mm.
because like that's something that I can relate to like as an American, you know, who's fairly secure in their sexuality and is okay being open about it. Like that's me and my friends. It's a bunch of gossipy gays,
Yeah.
getting gelato and talking about like messy stuff. Like there's something that felt so real about that in a way that like a lot of
Mm.
other manga about BL didn't. Because yeah, like I accepted that I was bisexual like in my teens. And even then, like as much as I may have been like in the closet, quote unquote, with my family, I wasn't anywhere else.
Yeah.
So the way that a lot of manga at the time was treating being queer felt very foreign to me because I was very open about it. It wasn't a
Mm.
secret. It was, yeah, like we talked about it. Like me and my friends talked about it. We supported each other in it. And there was something that was like really, really comforting about the world that revolves around Alan Neri and a bunch of the other works that are in that, because there's a bunch of spin-off works for that. That felt very close to home. That it's like, yeah, it's just a bunch of friends, like just having a good time. And like, yeah, there's relationship drama and yeah, it's messy. But again, we talk about this in the side character Rare episode, that it's not just about the main couple. It's about the other guy and his boyfriend. It's about the valet and the gelato shop owner and this slut over here. Like it's about everyone. It
I
isn't just
love I love it when there's a this slut over here.
there is
Yes.
definitely a this slut over
And
here.
I can tell you all right now, always my favorite character.
I think you'd like them. Like there is
I
a this slut over here. Like it's great and it's refreshing. And I think being able to set it in Italy, it's very, very accurate. You know, as someone who's been to Italy, you know, because if you ever go abroad, you have to mention you're contractually obligated.
I'm so confused by how things work over there. I'm just like,
you are contractually obligated to mention that you've been overseas.
What was it? Yeah, we were up until 3 a.m. last night playing Resident Evil 2 because we have no control.
Because you're great.
Oh god. And we were 3 disaster gays playing Resident Evil in the middle of the night. It was great. We were screaming our heads off. It was super fun. But there was this one moment where there's like, you know, Chris Redfield has like has been on vacation and he has sent a letter to the rest of the Stars team. And it's like the first line is literally something like, there is no way to describe Europe because it's so vast. I'm like, yeah, because it's a continent. It's not a country, America. Jesus Christ.
Like,
we're not a monolith.
If any American has been outside of America for 5 seconds, it becomes your whole personality. You take on the accent and you're just like casually like speaking in a different accent at like the fucking Applebee's.
And then it's like, you know, with the oh, that's what they call it in.
That's
whatever
what it's called in Paris. I have a croissant. That's what they say in Paris.
Oh my god.
Like it becomes your personality. And I hate to say it, I was in my 20s. It happened to me.
What, when you were in Austria?
Yeah. Because I studied abroad my junior year. I went over there when I was 20. I turned 21 when I was over there.
Oh, wow.
So I was peak cringy young adult. I was peak cringe. And I will never...
Cringe Amanda was like...
Oh my... I'll tell you. We were at Olive Garden, which is not authentic Italian fare. And I actually compared it to the food in Italy. And everyone that was in my family just stared at me like, you fucking idiot. Like, of course... You're at a chain restaurant, Amanda. Of course it doesn't taste like the pasta you had in Sorrento. Of course it doesn't, you fucking moron. Of course not. But like, it did become my personality for a little bit. Going to Japan has not become my personality, which I'm very proud of. Because I do know some people...
Yeah. No, but you're an adult now. So
I am an adult. But like, it did not become my entire personality. In fact, if anything, I feel like I don't mention it enough that when I do mention it, it's like, where the fuck? Wait, what? Where?
Yeah.
What happened? But no, I love Basso's work. I think more people should read it. I feel like they kind of like went under the radar a lot. Because a lot of this stuff is harder to find in the US. I actually have most of House of Five Leaves, which I treasure a lot. So yeah, that's me pimping Basso.
That's good.
Thank you. Do we have to talk about Golden Cane?
Yes! Love of my life. I'm going to be brief because I don't even remember most of the plot anymore.
It's been an hour and a half.
It's like, I'm over here. Listen, love of my life. Kidno Cane, Golden Cane. I mentioned this. I know I talked about this when we did the episode with BL Garden. I can't remember if I've actually talked about it at length. Here, I know I mentioned it. No, okay. I don't even really remember it, but I love it, okay? Because it was
the
literally
best kind of series.
It was the first BL that I read that wasn't doujin. As far as I can remember. I'm pretty sure it was like the first one. And it absolutely floored me because I never read, you know, original BL before. And I don't even know. There's this guy and he's sad and depressed. He's a very sad, depressed uke. And his brother may or may not be dead. And he meets this model named Kane. And they fall in love. And there's all this drama. And, you know, there's the brothers complex. And the jealousy and the non-con. And he's rescued from a gang rape by Kane. And Kane speaks to him in Vietnamese. And I remember being obsessed with that when I was a kid. Because I was like, I wonder what he's saying. Because it's not translated. Like, it's translated in the sense that he's speaking in Vietnamese, and then it's just like you got the furigana in the Japanese volume, and then I think it's just like Romagized in the English volumes. So I have no idea what he, to this day, I don't know what he actually says to him. And I remember being like, I need to learn Vietnamese because I need to know what Kane said. And I could probably just Google it at this point. But
yeah, at this age, you totally could just Google it.
But it's
but
just
that's not the point. That's not what this is about.
No, the point is that I was absolutely obsessed with it. And I know that I went back and reread it a couple of years ago, and I had a little bit of that, why was I so obsessed with this? Because honestly, it's not the best manga I've read in my life. I will say that. But I have such a fond memory of it. It was such a profound title for me when I was younger that I feel like I have to mention it all the time. It's from 2003, so I feel like it's on the newer side. A
little bit.
A little bit. But yeah, I feel like I need to mention it every chance I get because it was important. It was very formative for me as a person.
It's a good one. Okay.
I do, yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up with our last two because we've already been here for a while.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Yellow.
Yes! I love Yellow.
One of my favorite, I'm not gay except for you. One of my favorite.
Yeah, genuinely love Yellow.
Yellow is so much. It's fun. It's
and
honestly,
I love Makoto Tateno, so there's that.
Yeah,
but Yellow,
an absolute goat. It's obviously why I love Matt and Mello so much because it's the same pairing.
This is actually true.
It's the same pairing.
Yeah. The threads are crossing once again.
Oh, it's the same fucking pairing. Down to the chain smoking.
Yes.
But it's two guys. They try to find drugs. For good reasons, not for bad reasons, for good reasons. They're finding the drugs.
They're like cops or something, right?
But they're not cops. They're like affiliated with the cops.
Yeah, right. They're like this weird.
Yeah, like they're like affiliated. They're vigilantes. Who find drugs, and sometimes it means like crazy costume changes. It's literally just Matt and Mella.
I love it so much. I haven't read it in a while.
It's so good, and the art is good, and there's some dumbass trope shit in it.
And it's one of those that I like to introduce to friends who it's like, I use Little Butterfly and Yellow. Like those are
Little Butterfly is trash.
It is amazing. Leave me alone. No.
I'm ridiculing you.
No,
it's trash.
I love it. It's just because you're allergic to fluff. Even though there's so much trauma in that story.
There's a lot of trauma everywhere.
Yeah, true. But Yellow also goes into that whole, it fits in with, Fake and Banana Fish in New York, and all of these. Yes. And it has kind of like the same vibe. I really, really love Yellow.
It's really upbeat. It's fun. I really like it. It's just two guys having a good time. And then they do some gay stuff.
And it's good gay stuff.
It's good gay stuff. You want to talk about Rifle Scope?
Yes. I mean, I don't really remember Rifle Scope. I was going to reread it. Rifle Scope, or what is the other name? Let's see.
Feverishly Googling.
No, I have it. I wrote it down. I think maybe I may have accidentally deleted it from my document. What? No. Oh, okay. No. I have it here. It's fine. Okay. So it's also known as Shate Honey. And it's one of these things that I found in a live journal community that just was there. And it's like because I was making that video and I just have your voice in my head on repeat going, it's like, is this a fever dream or is it BL? But I know for a fact that it's a BL because I read it so many times when I was like 16 years old.
It is both a fever dream and BL.
I can't really tell you what it's about, but it's like there's this two thugs. And of course, I think this is where my obsession with delinquents came from, honestly. I don't remember anything. There's this one dude, I think maybe he transfers into the school and then he gets in trouble with one of these guys. I just remember someone writing their name on the blackboard, like, you know, they do the little ayagasa thing, and then they have like a fight, and then they end up screwing each other. And because he literally, oh my god, I just remembered, this shaped so much of all the horrible characters I've written in my life, like my originals that I have written, because I think that they get into an altercation in the classroom, and then one of the guys just jam his hand in the other guy's pants and like just jerks him off in the classroom, and then they have a feud, but they just become like fuck buddies or whatever. And then there's this one scene where they screw in a graveyard, and there's like a ghost who possesses one of them. It's very strange, okay? But it's such a fun read. Like, it absolutely doesn't take itself seriously.
What are we doing?
The artwork is actually not that bad. Like, I think it's kind of like a cross between, there are some panels that are really, really pretty. Like the graveyard sex scene is actually like very well drawn.
Well, what is a tasteful graveyard sex scene?
I remember having a panel from that scene as like my background on my phone for the longest time in my teens, and it was like, yeah, but there's also some parts that is like completely unhinged, like cartoonish drawing, so it's like a really fun read. And I mean, probably, you know, it's just super weird. I feel like it was one of those things that you would just find in the early 2000s that was just there, and I feel like it's such a testament to the era and the things we were reading.
Yeah, that sounds...
It's such a weird thing. I love it to this day. I'm gonna read it again later. Because I mean, now I found it. I have to reread it. It's so weird.
All right, we're gonna wrap this shit up with Lovers in the Night by Fumi Yoshinaga.
Okay.
Because it's a period piece set during the French Revolution.
Oh, there we go.
About a horrible fuckboy and his way too loyal butler. It's everything Amanda loves.
Yes.
If you need to make a perfect Amanda manga, it's a prissy little...
Made for you.
It was made for me. There is no one else who enjoys this content as much as I do. It's a prissy little fuckboy and his horrible butler.
I mean, not gonna lie, that sounds...
It's juicy.
It sounds intriguing.
And
I'll give you.
It's a lot of like fancy parties. It's... Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. There's an erotic hot cocoa scene. But I feel like a lot of Yoshinaga's work that isn't Antique Bakery tends to get a little bypassed, which is fine, because some of it is just batshit. There's a prequel to Lovers of the Night called Gerard and Jacques, which is about the butler. And it's traumatizing. Like most of Yoshinaga's work is.
I have no idea what you're talking about. What?
Oh man. But I feel like it's important to mention Yoshinaga because she has been producing for a while, and I feel like people kind of like stopped at Antique Bakery. And then they picked up with What Did You Eat Yesterday, but there wasn't enough gay in it to keep people.
I love What Did You Eat Yesterday, but it's, you know, there's a little too much cooking.
There's a lot of, yeah.
I think, but if you like cooking manga, I think
if you like cooking manga, it's great.
Yeah. And I love, like, especially in the more recent volumes, I really love how their relationship has grown, and, you know, because they are literally aging. Like, I'm starting to get concerned for them, you know, because I'm like, they're like actively talking about what's going to happen if one of us dies. I'm like, calm down, you're 50. Like,
yeah, I feel like also a lot of that was marketing, because so many people tried to market it as like the spiritual successor to Antique Bakery, and Antique Bakery is not about baked goods as much as it is about one man's trauma.
And Yoshinaga does say that What Did You Eat Yesterday isn't supposed to be a BL.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of the marketing around it was like, it's like a sequel to Antique Bakery. And it's like, no, it's not. And Antique Bakery was about baked goods, basically just as an excuse to talk about trauma. That's all Antique Bakery was. Do you want to talk about trauma? We're going to talk about baked goods instead. And it's going to be a thinly veiled metaphor for trauma. And the manga covers are scratch and sniff for some reason.
What is it with baked goods and trauma in these series? I'm just saying that Yuki 80's favorite food is strawberry shortcake.
How did I know the next words that were going to come out of your mouth? How did I already knew. I saw it. I was like Cassandra Nova in the X-Men. I saw it in my mind's eye.
To be honest, I don't think it is that hard to guess.
I foresaw it. I was like Charles Xavier. I knew what you were going to say.
But it had to be said again. It had to be mentioned again.
We're not going to talk about her for an hour and a half. But I think Lovers of the Night is definitely worth reading. I think it's one of the ones that kind of gets glossed over.
Was that one licensed?
It was licensed. It was licensed. I think actually, give me a second, because I think they had a license issue. Let me type.
No.
Apparently my computer is like, hey, you aren't going to type anything. I feel like, who was its original publisher? For the life of me, I cannot remember. No, I don't want to open with Amazon. It was Blue. I thought so.
Of course it was.
It was Blue. I was about to say, like, I feel like it's Blue, but I have to confirm. It was Blue. A lot of her BL work was released through Blue. And I was like, wait a minute, I know this one. But yeah, Lovers in the Night, not enough people talk about it. More people should read it. Along with some of her other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You want to go into your last one and then we can wrap this shit up?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't finished reading it, but now that I finally own it.
We're not talking about banana. Why are we talking about Banana Fish again?
We're not going to talk about Banana Fish. We're not going to talk about Banana Fish.
I think you're lying.
I'm just saying, I put it on the list because I already talked about so many 90s series. No, I want to talk about Heart of Thomas. I want to call it Heart of Thomas because it's set in Germany, and I don't think anyone says Thomas in Germany. That sounds
not a single person.
But supposedly that's the title. And again, 1974, our Lord and Savior, one of the founding godmothers of BL, Moto Hagio. And I finally own this thing. I'm so fucking happy. Oh, I'm so excited because They Were 11 is coming out in English this year. And I'm just like, yes, I love that one so much. Anyway, so I haven't finished it because it's 500 pages. I have about 100 pages left. This is one of these really formative works. It came out before Kazutoki no Uta, but Kazutoki no Uta is still counted as the first BL because, you know, Takemiya had been trying to get it published for 9 years already, so it already existed. But Heart of Tama is, you know, it is all of those things that is early BL. It's the influences of Hermann Hesse, German boarding school, all boys. They're all like super pretty, super idealized, super sad. Like it literally opens on a suicide. I mean, it's the most classic BL thing ever.
It's dramatic.
Yeah, it's dramatic. And it's like, and what's interesting is that I think, because going back to the beginning of this episode and us talking about how older stuff isn't necessarily palatable or easily understandable for younger readers, because I mean, this is from the 70s. Like, even for us who were around in the early 2000s reading a lot of 90s titles, this is like old.
I love that your list contrasted mine so much in that way, that I'm like old as the 1990s and Carola is like, here's this fossil I dug out of the earth.
Yes.
This is the Shroud of Turin of
And
BL.
and it's so like it reads as someone who has studied classic literature. No, but as someone who has studied literature, it reads like a 1700s romance novel.
It
Like
does. It
it's
does.
very dense.
It
It's very
reminded me
dramatic.
of Jane Eyre.
Yeah, it has that. It's very confusing because a lot of the characters look alike. It doesn't make it any less confusing by the fact that the guy who dies in the beginning, he's dead. But then there's a transfer student who looks exactly like him, who
Yes.
stirs up all these memories
There's always
in
a
the
transfer
school.
student.
Yeah. So there's like, it's because of the way it's told, and because I think a lot of manga back then in particular, like the storylines were a lot more like they were a lot more floaty. So it's like
Yes.
it's told through the characters having conversations and through like a thing happens and then another thing happens, and there isn't necessarily a rigid like storyline, so it can be hard to follow.
Absolutely.
But it's so interesting to actually read it. And again, going back to what I mentioned, seeing these tropes come into existence,
Absolutely.
where did it come from? Because we are at like this is the beginning. We're at the beginning of BL's existence here, and I'm so excited. And it's also such a mess because they're just boys. They're 13 to 15-year-olds, but since it's set in like the 1800s or something, they're supposed to be they're supposed to be adults. So you have 13-year-old adults running around with no guardians because they're all out of school, and their frontal lobe isn't developed. So you have all the teenage drama while they're supposed to be these upstanding young men, and it's such a mess, and I love it so much. I'm so glad I finally get to read this. And again, these are so far from the BL of today, but I think it's so important to read them to understand where we came from.
Very, very strong, like number one on the Criterion collection of like, you might not like it, but you need to know this. Like if you're going to get your I'm a Fujin card, like you needed to have read this. And again, you might reach the end of 500 pages and be like, this is fucking dumb.
And it's and it's okay if you don't. And I remember for the longest time I didn't read these classics because I didn't like the style, or I didn't think I would understand, or being young and stupid. But there's no sex. Why would I read BL that doesn't have any steamy scenes, right? Because even though there are steamy scenes in like Kazuki no Uta, they're not.
Why would I read BL if they aren't fucking?
I'm the Gaston of BL. Like, why would I read a BL with no fucking?
Literally me.
I know, same though. And I mean, now I'm an adult, I can appreciate it. And from an academic perspective, I love it so much. But I just think it's so.
I'm with you. Some of the sexiest BL I've read has like relatively little fucking. Because it's not always about the fucking.
But sometimes, I mean, if there's a good, like, I've said it before, if there's a sex scene that makes my chest go tight, that's a good one. Like when I get that, oh my god. No, I'm fine. I don't understand what you're talking about. My heart palpitations are perfectly okay.
You see someone. It's been 2 hours almost.
Wow. What a start to
Thank
the year.
you for sticking with us.
Thank you so much.
This is where we thank our patrons, where I bring up patreon.com, not a sponsor, kind of a sponsor, so that I can read our patrons' names, because I realized I promised we'd do that, and we don't do that at the end of episodes anymore, and I will not be a liar any further.
So, new year, new Amanda.
To our shipping crewmates, we have Lucy H. and Laura Evett. Thank you so much. To our second tier, the shipping first mates, we have Rachel Tanner, we have Sue, we have Amora Blue, we have Rin, we have Wesley. And to our highest level, our shipping captains. These are the ones that have decided, here's way too much money and we appreciate it a lot. Persona non grata and Jamie Andreasen. Thank you so much for helping keep the show going. And you guys do get some fun perks, including exclusive videos, shout outs at the end of episodes, And the merch, the episodes, all of it, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
If you'd like
much.
to join them in supporting the show, you may do so at patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. We do have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Discord that I've gotten better at linking.
Good. I'll get better at using it. I've been MIA again for, weeks.
You've been busy.
I was busy. And then I was playing Resident Evil and Crisis Core.
Carola, did you add in that your engagement helps us a lot?
Yeah.
You want to read?
Yeah, because we did decide that we were going to get better at promoting ourselves. So
we did.
I wrote in a little line. Your engagement really, really helps us out. So if you would, please leave us a like and a comment. Talk about your favorite old school reads and recommendations, because we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, we'd love to read them. I guess we have to become Phil DeFranco now. Smash that subscribe button.
Oh my god, no.
That feels wrong.
Stretch out your long ass yaoi hand fingers.
Yeah,
go. Okay, that was disgusting. I'm
sorry.
That
was gross. It's like an eye lemur. It's like the one opinion.
Please don't click dislike, please.
Yeah, please don't click dislike because we're weird. Next month, in honor of February.
Amanda is so excited.
We're gonna talk about fluff.
Yeah, fluff off. You're so happy. You love fluff.
I'm simmering right now. Like I'm steaming.
Is that why? Wasn't this your idea?
Yes.
Yes. But was that why you brought up Gaku in Heaven?
No.
No, okay. No, oh no, I know.
There we go. You
the
remember the meeting.
The wheels are turning. Yeah, I do.
You remember the meeting. Okay. We will see you guys at the end of the month for a live stream. Patrons, you get your exclusive episode at next week. Next week.
It's going to be a fun one.
It's going to be great.
If you like to see us squirm,
yeah, if you like chaos, I highly recommend joining on Patreon.
It's a very good month to join Patreon.
It's a great month to join Patreon. We will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
It's good to be back.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.